The job market might look fine from the outside, but the people living in it will tell you something different.
If you're looking for a job right now and feeling discouraged, just know that I applied to 1,623 companies before I got my current job offer.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but if you've been applying to jobs, internships, and you're like, I've applied to like 100 and nothing has come through, baby, that's normal.
I applied to 20 jobs this summer, and I heard back from one. It was a rejection from Starbucks.
So by the end of this, you'll understand exactly why that gap exists and how you can protect yourself in this market, whether you have a job or not. This week, the Bureau of Labor Statistics released the May jobs report, and on the surface, it looks fine. There were 172,000 jobs added, unemployment held at 4.3%, and wages are up 3.4% from a year ago. Now, you'd think that the job market's doing okay if you looked at those numbers. But buried in that same report is a number that tells a different story. 2 million people have been unemployed for 27 weeks or more, which is up 524,000 in just the past year. Long-term unemployment at that scale doesn't pile up in a market that's functioning the way the data suggests. The most obvious place to see this disconnect is the difference between job openings and actual hires. In April, there were 7.6 million job openings posted, but only 5.1 million of those people actually got hired, leaving a 2.5 million gap. And that gap continues to widen. So when a headline reports millions of job openings, that doesn't mean much anymore because an opening and a hire are two completely different things. Even beyond what the openings number is hiding, the total pool of real opportunities for many candidates has shrunk. Entry-level job postings are now down 29% since January 2024. For the first time since the pandemic, there is roughly one job opening for every one person looking for work. A couple of years ago, there were 2 openings per unemployed person, which shows a job seeker's market. What we have right now is the opposite, and to understand how we got here, we have to go back a few years. A few things happened at once, and each one made the others worse. During the pandemic recovery in 2021 and 2022, businesses were reopening, consumer demand was surging, and companies hired aggressively to keep up. And when demand cooled, employment swung too far in the other direction, and the mass layoffs that followed in 2023 and 2024 pushed large numbers of experienced workers back into a market that already started slowing down. At the same time, AI started replacing the tasks that entry-level roles were built around. In a recent survey of hiring managers, 60% said it's more efficient to use AI for entry-level work than to hire and train a person to do it instead. So companies aren't just hiring less because the economy slowed. For a growing number of tasks, these employers feel like they don't need to hire at all. But even when companies do post job listings now, that doesn't mean they're necessarily hiring. 8 in 10 employment recruiters admitted that their company posts jobs that are filled or do not exist. These are called ghost jobs. Companies are doing this to build a pipeline of candidates for positions that might be open later or to signal to investors and competitors that the company is actively growing even when it's not. And on top of that, in a survey of hiring managers, 62% said they post fake listings specifically to make their current employees feel replaceable. I want you to sit with that for a second because that is the majority of hiring managers using job listings as a psychological tactic against the people already working for them. But even when the job is real, getting past the first filter is harder than it's ever been. 97.8% of Fortune 500 companies now use algorithms to screen resumes before a human even sees them. And 74% of job seekers use AI to write or optimize their applications. But for the applications that do make it to a human reviewer, 33.5% of hiring managers say they can identify an AI-written resume in under 20 seconds. So you have AI screening on one end and AI writing on the other, and neither side trusts each other. And even when the job is real and your resume clears the algorithm, the odds of what comes next are still stacked against you. The average job seeker needs to submit between 32 to 200 plus applications to land a single job offer. And since COVID has normalized remote work, the application pool has gotten even wider. These postings draw applicants from across the country, and some of them live in cheaper places and are willing to take less money to do the same job you want. The odds land hardest on the people just entering the workforce. Unemployment for college graduates between 22 and 27 years old is sitting at 5.6%, which is the highest it's been in over a decade. But the unemployment rate doesn't even capture the full picture. 41.5% of recent graduates are underemployed, meaning they are working fewer hours than they want or working in jobs that fail to utilize their college education. And there's a structural trap forming that isn't being talked about enough. Mass layoffs of 2023 and 2024 pushed experienced workers into the market, and because of that, many of them are now applying for roles below their experience level to increase their hiring odds. And new graduates are applying for the same roles because that's where they're supposed to start. So you have two major groups competing for the same jobs, and neither one is getting the recognition they deserve. And these same market conditions making it hard to get in are creating pressure on the people already inside, but in ways that are harder to see. The quits rate, which measures how many workers voluntarily leave their jobs, just hit 1.9%. That's the lowest it's been since the start of the pandemic, but the reason is different now. In 2020, workers weren't shopping jobs because businesses were shutting down. But today, people aren't leaving because the market on the other side looks like everything we just described, and staying put feels like the safer option. But staying put has a cost. While wages are up 3.4% over the past year, inflation is running at 3.8%. So in real terms, the average employed person is losing purchasing power for staying in the same role. And even if you are able to switch jobs and negotiate a higher salary, that move is worth less today than it used to be. The salary bump you used to get from switching companies has fallen from around 9% in 2023 to roughly 6% today. So you're losing ground staying and gaining less ground moving. But the ripple effect of all this goes further than a paycheck. When nobody leaves voluntarily, mid-level slots don't open up. That means there's no place for entry-level workers to grow. And with entry-level roles disappearing at the same time, nobody gets the chance to build the skills that eventually create senior-level talent. So every company that needs experienced people 5 years from now are setting themselves up to not have them. Now we know what's actually happening underneath the data, but understanding the problem is only useful if you do something about it. So here's what you can do to protect yourself starting right now. Before anything else, you need a cash buffer. The personal savings rate is currently 2.6%, which means the average person is keeping almost nothing from every paycheck. And if you're in that position when your income stops, you'll take whatever job comes first because you can't afford to wait. But a job you took out of desperation is one of the hardest situations to get out of because you're too busy surviving it to actually search for something better. So build 3 to 6 months of necessary expenses in a high-yield savings account before you think about anything else. Because if you get laid off tomorrow, that money is what keeps the rent paid and food on the table when you take the time to find the right opportunity. Once your financial cushion is in place, submitting applications online shouldn't be your primary strategy for actually getting hired. Up to 80% of jobs are filled through personal and professional connections, not Indeed postings. And people who are referred into a role are 7 times more likely to get a job offer than someone who applied through a job board. Because when 200 people are competing for the same position online, the people who land offers are largely doing so because someone already vouched for them before the application was even submitted. Networking feels abstract if you're early in your career and haven't built many professional relationships yet. But the reality is that it's more accessible now than it's ever been. Between LinkedIn, Twitter, industry events, and even TikTok, the tools to reach people in roles you want have never been easier to use. And knowing which listings are worth your time matters just as much as knowing where to look. The signs of a ghost job are pretty consistent. A role that's been posted for more than 30 days with no update, no named hiring manager, and a vague description with no specific team or project mentioned are all red flags. And companies that keep reposting the same role every few weeks probably doesn't have a real position to fill. Now, you can still apply if the role seems worth it, but don't build your entire search around listings that show these signs because a meaningful share of them are going nowhere. The job market has a real structural problem right now, and it was likely in place long before you started your search. If you're struggling to find work or worried about losing what you have, that is not a reflection of your abilities. The system is harder than it should be. You just need to know why, and now you do. But if this made you feel like you're behind, even though you're not, I put together a video breaking down the 7 signs you're actually doing better financially than you think. You can watch that right here because trust me, you are. If I provided you any value today, make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you, my friends, for watching, and I will see you next time.